Hello there, love.
Hey, grab your drink.
Oh, chai.
Let's do this.
Okay.
Well, the last chapter was exciting.
Yes. So what's up next? Ooh, an honorable endeavor.
And it's yours.
Yes, it is.
You want to go for it?
Sure. Das ist nicht Paris. Holen Sie sich ein Zimmer. Which I think it means, this isn't Paris, get a room. Drake and McTrowell unlocked from their kiss and looked around sheepishly to see a policeman making a good show of indignance at their public display of affection. He didn't seem terribly serious about his order, probably owing to the jubilant atmosphere of the street. Drake instinctively reached up to tip his bowler at the cop, but wound up flapping his hand around his temple in the absence of his customary cover. To save Drake any more discomfort, Sparky saluted the policeman smartly and, taking Drake by the hand, headed back in the direction of the airfield. There was too much commotion to talk for most of their walk. It didn't help that Sparky was immediately recognizable in her leather duster and aviator's cap. Despite Drake's injuries, exhaustion, and general disorientation from his meeting with the Queen, he had to extricate Sparky a couple of times from overzealous fans and well-wishers. When they reached a calm spot at the bottom of the docking tower and out of the maelstrom, they said at the same time, "Are you all right?" They both paused for a beat, and Sparky got her bearings first. It still hasn't fully sunk in that Yvonne is gone. This was supposed to be his last flight, but not like this. I'm beginning to feel like my life is one crisis after another, punctuated by writing letters of condolences. He had such big plans for returning home and starting a new life. What am I going to tell his family? Ah, yes, about that. I am afraid you will have to be a bit creative. You may not tell them about the pirates. What? Why can't I tell them the truth? On whose orders? Her Majesty's. Her Majesty? Her Majesty Queen Victoria? And how did Her Majesty come to convey these orders to you? She grasped his wrist surreptitiously while looking closely into his eyes. She moved her head back and forth slightly to determine if his eyes were tracking. His pulse was strong and his breathing slightly elevated, but no more than would be warranted by the walking and recent excitement. She spoke them to me directly just a few moments before I met you on the street just now. Okay, let's find a place to sit down. You may have lost more blood than I realized. Are you feeling at all dizzy? I believe there is no part of my person that does not hurt at this moment. Except perhaps my lips. He paused a bit awkwardly. However, I am quite lucid. Her Majesty is here in Munich. She summoned me and provided some explanation for today's events that I may share with you later. I believe her presence is secret, as is the pirate attack. She looked directly into his face, vacillating between pursuing the line of questioning about Queen Victoria and further exploring the state of his lips. I had almost forgotten. Her Majesty has a missive for you as well. He reached for the inside pocket of his jacket. Before he could retrieve the purple envelope, their attention was diverted by a farm wagon rattling onto the airfield. It was driven by an older woman, neither of them recognized. From her dress and demeanor, she appeared to be a farm wife. Seated next to her on the plain wooden bench was none other than Sergeant J.B. Fox, considerably the worse for wear, but essentially intact. They ran to meet him, or at least moved as quickly as they could manage in their present state. By the time Drake and McTrowell reached the wagon, Fox had managed to climb down. Sparky threw her arms around his neck and gave him a big hug. She was rewarded with a response that consisted mostly of ooh and ouch. I'm sorry, I'm so glad to see you alive. Are you injured? Do you require medical attention? It's nothing that a hot bath and several pints of stout beer won't cure. He indicated the woman sitting on the wagon's bench. This is Frau Fitzpatrick. She was watching today from the ground. She's looking for her husband. Drake and McTrowell stared blankly at him. A certain Tobias. Realization dawned on Drake's face. He had forgotten all about the prisoners on the Burke and Hare. He had no idea whether the local authorities had taken them into custody. He turned to Frau Fitzpatrick. Please wait here. He headed up the docking tower without considering whether she had understood a single word of English. Fortunately, farm wives are a patient lot by necessity. Fox turned to McTrowell. The look on his face was very grave. "Ma'am, we have a motto in Her Majesty's Aerial Marines, no man left behind." She looked at him evenly, hoping further explanation would be forthcoming. When he walked around to the back of the wagon, she followed. "Normally, I wouldn't show a woman a sight like this, but you're a medical doctor and as stalwart as any Marine I've ever known." She nodded slightly at the compliment. He pulled back the corner of a tarp lying across the bed of the wagon to reveal the pulverized body of Ivan Krasnaya Rubashka. In spite of her medical training and stalwartness, she gasped. It was different when it was a friend. He replaced the temporary shroud. She took a slow breath in and out. "Thank you, Sergeant Fox. You have done a fine service to his family today. I hope it will bring them some small amount of comfort." Drake crossed the gangplank onto the Burke and Hare and dashed into the main hall. There was no one there. He poked his head into the cockpit. No one there either. He had a very bad feeling about this. He was heading out of the main hall to search the rest of the ship when he encountered Wilkinson coming in. "Wilkinson, do you know where the prisoners are?" "Why, yes. Old Maximilian's troops come and hauled them away." "All of them?" "Yeah, all three. That one she spat and hissed like a rabid cat. Wouldn't want to be meeting her in no dark alley." "Three, you say?" "Beg pardon?" "Oh, nothing, thank you." Wilkinson continued on his path to the cockpit, and Drake headed down the passageway to cabin 9. He rapped once on the door and opened it. Tobias was lying on the bottom bunk, snoring softly. Aldrich Fremont was nowhere to be seen. Drake shook Tobias lightly and held a finger to his lips. When Tobias stirred, Drake asked in a whisper, "Where is Fremont?" "Don't know. He was complaining about needing to use the head before I nodded off." Drake stepped back out into the passageway and looked around. No sign of Fremont. He leaned back into the cabin. Still speaking softly, he said very archly, "I am surprised you did not escape." He jerked his head back over his shoulder slightly. Tobias just rubbed his eyes and replied sleepily, "Huh?" "I said, I am surprised you did not escape." He enunciated each word clearly and gestured more strenuously backward with his head, also engaging his shoulder this time. "Oh, yes, right." Tobias shambled off the bunk and out of the cabin, patting Drake on the shoulder as he went past. He was just nipping into the main hall when he heard Drake's voice raised in reproach. "Fremont, where is your prisoner?" I left him sleeping in the cabin." "Unsecured? Do you not understand the meaning of the word prisoner?" Tobias was out of earshot before Fremont could muster a reply. By the time Drake had finished remonstrating Aldrich Fremont and returned to the base of the tower, Tobias, his wife, his wagon, and Fox were gone. Sparky was leaning against the tower with a bundle rolled up in canvas at her feet. "I believe one of your prisoners escaped," she quipped. "Most unfortunate. It seems Mr. Fremont is no better a guard than a defender." "What is that?" He indicated the roll at her feet. "Don't look. It's Ivan's body. Sergeant Fox was considerate enough to return it. I've sent him to determine if any of the Krasnaya Rubashkas traveled to Munich for the conclusion of the race." He wrapped his arms around her shoulder and she rested her head on his collarbone. Neither of them said anything for a few minutes. When she regained her composure somewhat, she said, "Would you please stand guard over Ivan? I should get to the purser's office and make arrangements for a coffin. It would not be respectful to return Mr. Krasnaya Rubashka to his family wrapped in an old tarp smelling of hay and pigs." He just nodded, and she trudged off across the airfield. Not surprisingly, the purser was very efficient at his job. He had carpenters assembling a plain pine box within the hour. Sparky retrieved some sheets from the Burke and Hare. She and Drake had Yvonne neatly wrapped in the sheets and nailed into the coffin by the time dusk was setting in. Fox returned to the airfield in the company of the man Drake had seen drinking with Krasnaya Rubashka in Salzburg. Sparky saw him glance at the rapidly assembled coffin. She walked towards him, extending her hand. Здравствуйте, меня зовут Sparky McTrowell. That means, hello, my name is Sparky McTrowell. Здравствуйте, меня зовут Юрий Красная Рубашка. She continued in Russian. You're related to Ivan? He is my cousin. He eyed the coffin again. What happened? There was an accident. A crew member failed to secure your cousin's safety line when he went out to perform a repair. I am very sorry for your loss. Your cousin was an excellent pilot. And it was an honor to fly with him. Thank you. Western Transatlantic Airship Lines will make all the arrangements to send his body home and pay for everything. He thanked her again, but he was no longer really engaged in the conversation. He was just staring at the coffin. Drake waited for McTrowell to precede him up the stairs to the Burke and Hare. Fox trailed behind. She commented, mostly to the air, I am sorely in need of several days of sleep. Unfortunately, she could not afford several days of sleep. By the time she awoke in the morning and climbed achingly out of her bunk, Wilkinson and Sevilla were already well underway making the Burke and Hare ready for the return journey, including disconnecting the disabled boiler. She encountered Jake Fremont in the passageway. He was attempting nonchalance with zero success. Good morning, Mr. Fremont. Good morning, Captain. Ah, so that's what this was about. Mr. Fremont, as you well know, we are tragically without a first mate and must make haste back to Paris and London. Are you willing and able to serve? Yes, ma'am! Meet me in the cockpit in 25 minutes. He fairly scampered toward the main hall. She expected he would be in the cockpit in less than one. She nearly bumped into Drake as he came in from the catwalk. The dressings on his head looked fresh, and his bowler was back on his head, albeit tipped back somewhat to avoid too much contact with the bandage. I would have changed the bandage for you when I changed the sutures. That will not be necessary. She looked at him quizzically for a moment. Why not? Her Majesty sent her physician to examine me. And what did he say? How do you know Her Majesty's physician is a man? They always are. Yes, well, he said that he could not do a better job than had already been done, and that I should return to the physician who performed the original suturing when my face healed and have him remove them. Ha! I'm sure he would be happy to do so and to change the bandages as it heals. She wasn't sure whether to smile or scowl at the exchange, and so just settled on getting to the bridge. She turned on her toes to leave. The letter from Her Majesty? I beg your pardon, she said, stopping mid-turn. Her Majesty sent a message for you last night, but I failed to deliver it amidst the arrangements for Mr. Krasnaya Rubashka. Oh, yes. I'd forgotten as well. He handed her the envelope and stepped into the gondola on the way to his next mission of the day. She read the address on the outside of the envelope and felt like she was being choked. Drake stepped up to the door of cabin 1 and knocked smartly. He heard a mumble from inside that he chose to interpret as an invitation to enter. Wallace was still in bed and looking like he'd been ridden hard and put away wet. Drake entered and closed the door smartly. Mr. Wallace, it is past time to face your situation like a man and take action to correct it. Why did she leave you? My wife? I don't know. Every investigation must begin with facts. What did she say when she left? She said she was bored and that she wanted to do something. Did she indicate what she meant by something? Some business thing. Why would you want to do that? I bought her a beautiful new townhouse in Belgrave Square and gave her an unlimited budget to decorate it any way she wants. She travels to Bath every summer for the water. She lunches every day with her lady friends. We have a Christmas ball every year that everyone wants to attend. What more could she want? He practically sobbed the question. Do these activities sound interesting to you? Well, of course not. I'm not a woman. Nor am I. Nor do I claim to be an expert on women. Neither, he thought to himself, do I wish to become an expert on such women. He continued, but these activities do seem repetitive and tedious to me. What is your bloody point, Drake? As I said, every investigation must begin with facts. The only fact in evidence at this time is that she has stated that she is bored. I recommend pursuing this line of questioning with her when you return to London. Drake stood up crisply to leave. One more thing. I strongly advise listening to her answers to your questions. He exited the cabin without waiting to hear Wallace's reply that seemed to be forming slowly and incoherently on his lips. Drake was sure he didn't want to hear it, nor would it be further illuminating. Standing alone on the catwalk. Sparky swallowed hard. There was no avoiding the letter. Drake had delivered it, and one didn't forget or lose a letter from a queen, even if it wasn't her queen. Dr. McTrowell, we have 10,000 eyes and 10,000 ears. Do not mistake a lack of action on our part for a lack of knowledge. Soon you will be called upon to further aid Chief Inspector Drake, a commission in which we believe you will be strongly invested. Endeavor to honor the memory of your grandfather in this task. Victoria Regina. Well, seems like Sparky's in the soup.
Well, that's leaving it on a hot potato. That's
It is.
It
It
is.
is. Okay, well.
Well, this has been another episode of Corona Storytime.
Thank you for joining us. We're getting close to the end. You can see there's like only a few chapters left. So, come back for the rest of it. Thanks.
Thanks.